All right, we're gonna start in like 1 minute. I think everything. All right, we're gonna start in like 1 minute. Well, that's good, not good. All right, there we go. I don't think we'll get an echo now. Okay, welcome everybody to a live episode of the Yaron Brook Show. This time broadcasting from London, England. As those of you who are regular listeners to the show know, one of my all-time favorite places in the world, and always great to be here. So hey, and this time not only did I come to do some work, which I will be doing next week, but I actually got to go see. I got to see baseball in England. My team lost, but it was insane game. It almost seems like they rigged the game, right? They colluded and they rigged the game to make it somewhat interesting to the Brits. I mean, this is a game, for those of you who know baseball, this is a game in which 30 runs were scored yesterday, and they had almost 40 hits. That never happens. That's like, that's like 5 games. That's not one game. Anyway, it was a completely insane baseball game. Yankees scored 6 runs in the first inning. The Red Sox then scored 6 runs in the first inning. Then the Yankees kind of ran away with it. Then the Red Sox almost caught up to the point where they had the bases loaded in the 8th inning, and a home run would have tied the game. It was 17-13 at that point. 17-13. And of course, they didn't tie the game, and they lost, and then they lost again today. Anyway, it was fun to watch baseball in the UK. For those of you who are British and might have watched the game, that is not baseball. Nobody scores that many runs. In baseball, they actually have pitchers who actually can throw the ball so that the batters can't hit the ball. That was not on display yesterday. Everything, they were hitting everything. It was completely insane. Anyway, I came to see a baseball game. I haven't seen a baseball game with my dad and my brother. Probably haven't seen one since 1976. So this is 43 years since I saw a baseball game with the two of them. So it was a blast. I really enjoyed it, and it was kind of cool to be in England, in London, to watch baseball. All right, one of the things we're going to do today, so those of you on YouTube, prepare, because I will be taking Super Chat questions. So if you have any Super Chat questions, please get ready with those, because I'll be taking anything you want. I'll be answering anything you want. I am here in London. I will not be doing any events, unfortunately. Nothing was scheduled. The school is out. Obviously, school is out, which is a challenge, and a lot of kind of the think tanks, Adam Smith Institute and others that I usually speak for, I've spoken for recently, so it didn't work out. Nothing worked out for this week, but I'm here to work for my hedge fund to raise some money, and I intend to do that, and then I fly to. I'll be in Switzerland for a couple of days, again, doing meetings to try to raise money for my hedge fund, and then I'll be in Florence on vacation for about 10 days with my wife. So I'm going to try to do some shows while I travel. I apologize profusely for the fact that I haven't done many shows at all in over a month, in the last month or so. That has to do with just the insanity of the travel schedule and what I've been doing while I'm traveling. It has to do with bad internet connections. I was trying to do a show. I tried twice to do a show from Ocon, and the internet reception was just pathetic, and I just couldn't do it. So, again, apologize, and I'm not sure what's going to happen then over the next 2 weeks, but I will promise that once these 2 weeks are over, we'll get into a better schedule of shows. And again, my anticipation is that next year I will be traveling less and doing more shows. That is next year, meaning beginning October 1. All right, I did want to fill you in on Okan, I really had a great time. I know many of you or some of you were there. I really enjoyed meeting many of you in person. People who I see in the chat all the time, people who comment on stuff that I post, and it was a blast to actually meet you in person and to have an opportunity to chat. Jose asked, no intro music. No intro music this time. When I travel, the intro music comes from another app that I would have to load up, and that is I stream live on Spreaker, which is how you do my podcasting. But when I travel, the computer's not, I don't trust the computer powerful enough to both stream all these things on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope, and also to do the podcast. So what I do when I travel is we upload the podcast after the fact for all those people who podcast, and therefore no intro music. Intro musics I only do from home. So one of the ways I'm traveling is when there's no intro music associated with it. Okay, again, those of you on YouTube, if you want to ask questions, we do have a SuperChat feature, so ask questions about pretty much anything. Completely open. And no, you can't ask just any questions. You have to actually use the SuperChat feature and put a few dollars towards it. If you want to actually ask a question. I want to tell you a little bit about Okan. I mean, I had a blast, and I know those of you who were there had a good time as well. The theme this year of Okan was the Romantic Manifesto, and I got to talk a lot about art, something I love doing. And, I might not be philosophically a deep expert at it, but I do know a lot about experiencing art, and it was an opportunity for me to say a lot of things that I've thought over the years, a lot of things that I've wanted to tell objectivists over the years, give a lot of recommendations on dealing with art and how to develop your aesthetic tastes. I hope it was useful. I'm waiting to see what kind of feedback I get from some of you in terms of how useful the recommendations were, particularly after you've tried them out and gone and experimented a little bit by art. But one of the things, I think one of the key things that I said was, part of the theme of what we were talking about was the importance of art, and that you cannot really live, if you're going to be selfish, if selfishness really matters, if your life really matters to you, if you really want to make the most of your life, every day, every hour of the day for the rest of your life, then you have to find ways to make art a part of that life. Ayn Rand talks about this in great detail in the Romantic Manifesto, but art is a human need. There's no accident that every civilization, every single civilization from the beginning of time, from the caveman really, has had some form of art, whether it's cave drawings or whether it's sitting around the campfire telling stories, Homer, long adventure stories and poems, and every culture out there has had artists. The Egyptians, the Mesopotamians. We find little carvings of the gods or of the attempt to carve human beings. We see all that in civilizations that go back to the beginning of Homo sapiens. 100,000 years ago, tens of thousands of years ago. Art is a human need. And the more sophisticated the civilization in which you live, the more conceptual your thinking becomes, the more conceptual the challenges in your life becomes, the more conceptual the work that you do becomes, then the more you need art. Because art is necessitated by the fact that we have a conceptual mind, and we can't hold those concepts. We just don't have the capacity to hold those concepts, the moral concepts, the philosophical concepts, the metaphysical concepts, our concepts about life and how to live, the principles. We cannot hold them just as abstractions. It's too much. It's too much. And as a consequence, we need to see those abstractions concretized in the world out there. Concretized means brought into reality. It's something that you can see, hear, read. Something that is that portrays, that reflects back to me real metaphysical values, real moral values, the actual abstractions that we all live by. And it is crucial in order to live a successful, happy life to experience that concretization of these ideas. And you know, if you want to be happy, if you want to live a successful life, and if you want to be moral in the sense of holding these concepts and making them real and making them part of your life, really a part of your life, then art is the only way to do it. And you've got to make art part of your life. Now, for the most part, art is focused on the metaphysical value judgments that we all need to live by. That is the most fundamental, basic conclusions about the world that you come to. That is ideas about what is reality like? Do I trust reality? Do I have the capacity to deal with reality? Do I belong on this earth? Is life, just in a broader sense, good or not? So the most basic, fundamental conclusions that one comes to as a young person, on which one builds a life. And these are very hard to know. These are the conclusions, these metaphysical value judgments, these ideas are kind of what build our sense of life, build the way we relate to the world around us and the way we relate to other people, to reality, to existence, and most importantly to ourselves. It determines to a large extent, or it's one of the determinants of our psychology, of our character, and ultimately of our responses to the world and to life. And art is what brings this forward. Art is what reflects back to us, and our response to art is an indication of those specific metaphysical value judgments that we all have. So it's crucial to know yourself, because through art one can learn what sometimes has happened subconsciously, what sometimes happens in childhood, what sometimes you don't know the kind of conclusions you've come to. You can therefore use art to help change your sense of life, these subconscious conclusions, by learning what you react to and how you react to, when you react to it, and then thinking about it, self-evaluating, introspecting. Why? Why am I reacting this way? Why is it this way? So, again, art is fundamental to a successful human life. And the better the art, the greater the art, the more it will contribute to your life. The more you will get from it. Even if the great art, the good art, is philosophically inconsistent with your philosophical ideas, you can learn or you can experience important I was going to say important experiences, right? But that's you can have important experiences from that art. Now, while art's primary function is just experiencing it, it's just the emotional reward, if you will, from living it, art also has real important function for your consciousness. It helps mold how you think about the world. Not how you explicitly think about the world, but how you start observing the world. You know, if you go to a museum and you carefully look at paintings, I mean, you really spend time on a painting and you look at where's this and where's that and why is the man standing over here and why is this other figure over there, and you really focus on it, then when you get back home, you'll start noticing things in your room that are different. Just, oh, I didn't notice that pot was over there. I didn't notice the flowers in the corner. I didn't notice that the television was a little crooked, whatever. You start noticing details that aren't impacts the way you look at the world. Your ability, you're actually the way you use your senses. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple of SuperChat questions. Okay, thoughts on the Bauhaus movement. Was Rand inspired by it? What kind of architecture do you like? No, I mean, I don't think she was. I mean, the Bauhaus movement was kind of a. I mean, I'm not an expert on Bauhaus, but it was kind of a minimalist. It was primarily in architecture, but it went beyond that. I mean, Ayn Rand was a huge fan, not of Bauhaus, but she was a huge fan of Frank Lloyd Wright. She was a huge fan of the kind of architecture, and I don't really have a name for that architecture. It was modern at the time, of Frank Lloyd Wright, and she was really interested in this idea of form following function, of having homes or buildings that were integrated into their environment, into their surroundings, whether it be nature, or whether it be the environment within a city. She was a huge fan of innovation in architecture, but that presented something as beautiful. Now, it's interesting. I learned this at Ocon. I didn't actually know this, but it turns out Ayn Rand wasn't particularly fond of architecture. I read this in the Q&A book. There's a Q&A book about all her Q&As where she answers questions. And people assume that because she wrote The Fountainhead, she must love architecture. And it turned out she didn't. She needed architecture. When she wrote The Fountainhead, she needed architecture in order to have something that combined science and arts, which architecture does, in the figure of how it worked. And she studied architecture for 2 years in order to be able to write the book. But she was not a huge fan of architecture. And I think that the Bauhaus movement was probably too stark and naked and uninteresting, boring, if you will, for Ayn Rand. And I'm looking at some buildings, Bauhaus buildings, and they're not particularly inspiring, particularly when you think of there's a lot of Bauhaus in Israel, particularly when you think of Frank Lloyd Wright and how he broke the shapes and how he integrated his buildings into their environment, and how he used windows and how he used cantilevers, and everything he did was interesting. Everything he did, I think, was exciting, was stimulating. Generally, Ayn Rand didn't like modern arts, although again, modernity in architecture manifested itself, I think, differently than modernity in the other arts. Certainly, in the other arts, basically, it completely disintegrated. Whereas, at least in architecture, it has to be functional to some extent because people have to live in it, so it can't completely disintegrate into nothingness. Although, of course, what's that architect who did the Disney concert hall in L.A. that comes close to disintegrating architecture completely? Anyway, I guess modern architecture has come close to disintegration, even if it hasn't quite achieved that. All right, Ryan asked, did you see the Democratic debates? Thoughts? No, I didn't see the debates. I've been traveling, and it didn't seem worth the effort, given my travel schedule and given how busy I was. I haven't seen them. I'll see the debates. I'll see the future debates. Frank Gehry, thank you. Frank Gehry is the architect who designs a lot of buildings, and particularly his roofs are just this mangled metal in all kinds of shapes. The shapes have no function. They serve no purpose other than to just make it look kind of like whimsical and somewhat stupid. So Gehry is the closest we get to kind of complete disintegration in architecture. Anyway, I'm going to watch the debates in the future. I'm going to watch the Democratic debates in the future. I might even tweet some of the Democratic debates. Although, I mean, what do you think I think of the Democratic debates? They're pathetic. They're all competing on who can be more statist. I think in the end, it looks like, just from what I've read about the debates, it looks like the people who have performed best are Elizabeth Warren and potentially Kamala Harris. Two very, very scary ladies in terms of their policies. So I think what's going to come out of the Democrats is very scary policy and very scary individuals running for president. And it's truly sad that we're not going to have an alternative to Donald Trump, because I think my view. If I would vote for almost anybody over Donald Trump, but not anybody. So, and I fear that the Democrats are going to nominate somebody who I can't vote for. Now, I live in Puerto Rico now, so I can't vote for president anyway, so that decision is taken out of me. But it would be nice if I can advocate for somebody. I mean, my ideal scenario is if somebody challenges Donald Trump within the Republican Party, but Trump is so loved now, is so loved by the Republicans, that by the grassroots Republicans, that I don't think anybody has the balls to run against him. So I don't think that will ever happen. Round walls, Frank, I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Let's see. Karen asked, what is your view on meditation? I think I've talked about this in the past. I've tried to do meditation. I can't. I don't seem to be able to actually do it. If I'm very successful at kind of blanking my mind and really relaxing my mind and focusing just on my breathing, then I fall asleep. I don't actually go into kind of what I think people consider a meditative state. But I know people who do meditate and get a lot of value out of it. And it's a form of resting your mind. It's a form of clearing your mind so that you can focus better when you're outside of the meditative state. It's a way to reduce stress, and certainly I have nothing against it. It's a tool. There's nothing mystical about it. It is a way to kind of rest your consciousness, and there's nothing mystical, nothing mysterious about it. I don't know that we know scientifically how it works exactly, but then there's very, very little we know scientifically about the workings of human consciousness, about the workings of the mind. That's what's so shocking about all the people that actually come to these wild conclusions about human consciousness and the human mind when we know so little. I'd say this: my equivalent of meditation, something I actually mentioned during Ocon in the talk on art, is the equivalent of meditation for me is listening to classical music. And I've often recommended, and I'll recommend again, that the way to listen to classical music is, first of all, if you're new at it, then start with very relatively what I would consider easy pieces and short time frames. Don't try to listen to a whole symphony, just listen to a movement. But what I find is, if I turn off the lights and I go into a soundproof room, and I put the volume on 11, if you know the reference, put the volume on 11, and I lay down and I just focus on the music. So just like in meditation, they teach you how to focus on your breathing. I just focus on the music. And I try not to think about anything. I try to empty my mind. I try not to let my consciousness drift. I try to just kind of follow an instrument. As you're practicing this, you might want to pick an instrument in the orchestra and try to follow it. And, I'm really try to let the music just sweep over me. Just, completely wash through me. And I find that is one of the most rewarding, relaxing, mind-clearing, energizing things that I can do in my life. It's better than a movie for me in a sense. For this purpose, it's better than reading a book. It's better than almost anything, because there's that connection of music makes directly with your emotions. No evaluation necessary. So to really feel the music, clearing your mind is the way to do it. I don't imagine things. I don't recall things from my childhood, because I didn't really listen to classical music in my childhood, and I just let it envelop me. And I find that incredibly rewarding, and I find that when people describe what they get out of meditation, I find that I get that from meditation. So I strongly encourage you. I know, and I said this during the conference, but I'll say it again. I mean, you guys all like the music you grew up with. You know, most of you. So you're into the music that you were probably into when you were teenagers. Or you're into popular music, or into country music, or into what's on the radio right now. And all of that is great. It's catchy. It's fun. It gives you a certain level of intensity, of emotional response and emotional intensity. And I think generally popular music connects us with memories associated with that music. It's a very direct connection. So it's great for nostalgia. It's great for thinking about the past. It's a lot of fun in that sense. But it only goes so far. And I think you don't know how powerful music can be on you unless you actually make an effort to listen to classical music and listen to it intently and properly and with immense focus. You'll be shocked at what it can actually do to you. So instead of meditating, try what I described a minute ago in terms of listening to music in the dark, no lights on, no other stimulation. Just focus on the music and see what happens. And I think you'll be enlightened in terms of kind of the depth of emotion, the depth of the response that you will have. And there's so much classical music. Start with something for Beethoven or Brahms or Schubert or Schumann or Mendelssohn or Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff or Grieg or so many others. But I would start with something relatively sweeping, emotional. Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky are great at that. Just turn off the lights, close your eyes, focus on the music, and see what happens. So I'm a big fan of that rather than meditation. But I'm also a big fan of you. As I said, art is crucial to your life. So I'm a big fan of you elevating your taste in music and in art generally. Going to museums, finding artwork you like, studying it, studying a bit of the history of art, being able to go back to the Renaissance and find paintings you like, and figuring out why you like them and think about them. Same with sculpture, and of course novels. Find novels that you can immerse yourself in, and the pleasure is immense. And the benefits, the cognitive benefits, the benefits to your mind, the benefits to your ability to think are going to be unbelievable. And of course, the emotional and spiritual fuel. Now, somebody says here, Mahler. I wouldn't start with Mahler. I mean, I like Mahler today, but I would not start with Mahler. Mahler is hard. Mahler is sophisticated. The melodies are complex, and I'm only now, I'd say over the last 5 years, I managed to get into Mahler. I liked some of Mahler when I was younger, but it was hard for me. And so I wouldn't recommend starting there. And also Mahler, I mean, while I love him and he's amazing, I mean, he's very depressing, right? I mean, the music is melancholy, but it's so deep and it's so powerful and it's so important. Yeah, I'm with Mahler, and again, it's taken me a while to appreciate him fully. And again, we're all going to respond differently to music. Ayn Rand didn't like Beethoven, but I love Beethoven. I relish Beethoven. Beethoven gives me the energy to keep on fighting, and I'm a fighter. So it's you know, music is incredibly powerful. But again, whatever art form you find interesting, whatever art form you enjoy, elevate yourself. I mean, the crap that passes for music today as popular music is crap. Now, you can enjoy crap. You know, it's lighthearted, it's sugar, it's like taking a teaspoon of sugar. But it's not deep, it's not art, it's not something that's really going to evoke emotions from you, and you're not going to get the full benefits, the cognitive benefits of that you can get from great art by listening to crap, or by listening to superficial stuff, or by listening to sugary pop. Go out and experiment and really dig deeper. And again, in all the art forms. I'm not saying this just as music. And of course, stay away from what's called modern art, because it is a waste of time. Go anything before the 20th century. Just go experiment. Go look at paintings and sculptures and spend some time with them. And again, figure out what you like and what you don't like, and how you like it, and what it is about it you like, and why you think you're responding one way to one painting and a different way to another painting, and what colors do you like, and what forms do you like. And there's so much to love, but focus on it. You see, a lot of us, we put art in the background. Like, it drives me nuts when there's classical music in the background. Classical music is not meant to be listened to in the background. It's meant to be listened to. And don't just go into a museum and scan everything. Find the stuff you like and spend real minutes looking at it. Right? Focus, analyze, think about, and emote. All right, Bra asks, that's quite a name. When was the last time you changed your mind on a significant issue? You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. What's a significant issue? I mean, I changed my mind about people, my evaluation of people. That happens more frequently than I'd like, because I'd like to be better at evaluating people. I change my mind about, and I'm often wrong about, I don't know, anything. Anytime I try to predict the future or predict the economy or things about the economy. I haven't changed my mind about philosophical issues in years. You know, it took me a while to understand objectivism. It took me a while to integrate it. And during that period, I changed my mind about a lot of things. And once in a while, I still do, like somebody like Onkar Gate or particularly Onkar will say something and I go, huh, all right, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. So, I'd say over the last 20 years, I've changed my mind about a lot of things. I don't know that what you consider a significant issue. A is A. I haven't changed my mind about that since I read Ayn Rand for the first time. Morality of egoism, haven't changed my mind about that in a long time. But the application, I think I've changed my mind lots of times. And primarily when a philosopher or when somebody like Leonard Peikoff says, no, you don't know what you're talking about. That's completely wrong. And it forces me to stop, to think, and to reevaluate. So, and that happens. It doesn't happen as much with Leonard because he's less involved, but it certainly happens with Onkar and other philosophers in objectivism. So, Marius says, I thought we weren't supposed to emote. Really? I mean, that's kind of, that's ridiculous. Of course you're supposed to emote. You live through your feelings. You live through your emotions. You're not supposed to make decisions based on your feelings, but your feelings, that's what makes life fun. The passion, the love, the excitement, the joy, sometimes the fear, the drama, the suspense. Yeah, I mean, emotions are exactly how you experience life. So of course you emote. And art allows you to experience all those emotions. Experience emotions that you're not going to experience in real life because you might not live through those circumstances. Why do people like horror movies? Because they want to experience that kind of fear, but they don't want to experience it in real life. There's a certain thrill in experiencing fear when you know it's not real. So emotions are wonderful, and art allows you to experience things and to experience in depths that you cannot do in real life, and that is incredibly powerful, and one of the reasons you guys all should really pursue art. You cannot, again, I'll say this again, you cannot live a good life, you cannot live a happy life without some good art. And you know, I say this periodically, but you know, you can't control politics. You can't control who's going to be the Democratic nominee. You can't control who wins the presidency. You can't control what Donald Trump will do tomorrow. I guess today he crossed into North Korea. One of the most disgusting acts a U.S. president has ever done. You can't control any of that stuff. It just is. And you can try to influence it at the margin. You can try to make it a little better. You can try to make it, you know, you can convince one person there, but your vote doesn't matter. You know, as an individual, you have very little influence on the political, or really no influence on the political world around you. But what do you have an influence on? You have an influence on the kind of life you live. You have an influence on the kind of art you experience. You have an influence on what kind of environment you create for yourself in your home. The kind of, whether you surround yourself with beauty or ugliness, whether you surround yourself with inspiring paintings, sculptures, books, or whether you have white, dull, meaningless walls around you and no inspiration. Whether you listen to crap on the radio or whether you listen to great music. Those are things you have direct control over. Those are things you can actually impact your life right now, right here. You don't need to go to Galt's Gulch. You don't need for us to win the political battle. You can already be happier just by doing those things. So take a little time off Facebook. Take a little bit of time off YouTube and Twitter and watching Fox News or whatever news channel you happen to watch and the debates and everything like that. And go find some beautiful art that you can surround yourself with. Go organize your room. Make it pretty. Make it, you know, when Jordan Peterson says tidy your room, there's a sense in which that's true, but there's the deeper sense of create around you an aesthetic experience, because that aesthetic experience is actually going to enhance your life right now, right here, and it's actually going to enhance your cognitive abilities. It's going to make you a better thinker and a better person and a better lover and a better everything. You know, watch great movies, and when I say great, I mean old, because that's the times when there were great movies. By the way, I have a movie recommendation, so hopefully I'll remember to give it to you. You know, a modern movie, a movie I watched recently, made recently. You know, go out there and really and live. And art is one way through which one lives. It's in your control. Okay, Raw Downs asked, have you seen the HBO's Chernobyl? I have not. I intend to. But, you know, I've two things about it. I've heard that it's a great kind of commentary on the Soviet Union. That's great. If it does it well, that's good. But I've also heard that it gets all kind of the nuclear stuff wrong, and it actually promotes the fear of nuclear power, and that's too bad. But of course, again, the benefit you get from a TV series or a movie is not about its political message. I'm not actually that interested in movies that have political messages. I'm much more interested in watching heroes, not heroes for a political cause, but just heroes, because heroes inspire me. I'm much more interested in seeing people who are challenged by real dramatic impact, you know, real drama, real challenges, and that rise up above that. And maybe maybe Chernobyl has some of that. But again, I'm not interested in movies that are just focused on the politics. I'm interested in these metaphysical value judgments, in these basic fundamental issues that relate to human existence. And one of the reasons, by the way, I love, and I keep recommending this, and I'll continue recommending it, the TV series Mr. Sunshine, because Mr. Sunshine, it has the politics because it deals with the Japanese occupation of South Korea, but the essence of it is about two people who value, deeply, care and live and strive to live and strive for the values that they see as important. And there's a clash between them. One's highest value, if you will, at the end of the day, is patriotism. Is in a sense loyalty to country and the fight for that country's freedom and liberation. And the other person's values are love. The other person. They love the other person, the ones who are patriotic. And while the other person loves them too, the love of this other person is not as important as the patriotism. Now that's a great story. That's a great clash of values. Two good people who have different hierarchies of values. And one of them might be wrong and one of them might be right. I mean, I'm not, I don't think the patriotism is the way it's portrayed is important enough to give up love, to give up everything. But that's the kind of conflict that makes great drama. Two different hierarchies of values between two good people that create massive dramatic effect, and where you don't know how it's going to be resolved and what that actually leads to. And so I love the more moral, values-driven art. I don't particularly like political-driven art. Somebody mentioned 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men is a fantastic movie. I particularly recommend the older version, the version with Henry. I can't remember the names of actors anymore. Anyway, it's an old version. I think it's from the 50s or early 60s. It's got a lineup of superstars from that period in the cinema. And it's a fantastic movie. And the interesting thing about 12 Angry Men, it's one of the few. There are only a handful of movies, good movies, great movies in my view, but good movies I really enjoy, that have epistemological themes, where the theme has to do with how we know. And 12 Angry Men has an epistemological theme, and it's very unique. Do we know the truth? What is the truth? How do we discover the truth? Is the truth what it first appears? How do we analyze the evidence that we have to figure out what is true and what is not true? Fascinating. And I'd say 12 Angry Men is one such movie. What's the movie about Ellen Keller? That's the other movie. The movie about Ellen Keller is the other movie that has an epistemological theme, obviously, because she can't hear, she can't see, she can hear or see. So everything has to go through touch. And then the question is, how do you know? How do you create concepts through touch? Miracle Worker, one of the 5 best movies ever made. So Miracle Worker, 12 Angry Men, 2 epistemological movies. And I would actually argue, and somebody can ask me about this, I would actually argue that James Cameron's early movies, primarily the 2 that come to mind, Aliens, the one with the S, Aliens 2, Aliens, and The Abyss, at least up until the ending, both have epistemological themes. So Aliens and The Abyss both have epistemological themes, but there are very, very few movies that have those kind of themes, and very rare and very worth watching. And if you want to know why Aliens and The Abyss, why I consider the themes they're epistemological, you've got the SuperChat and you can ask me. Do you think sculpture is underappreciated as art? Well, by whom? I certainly don't underappreciate it. I know Lena Peikoff and others love sculpture, and a lot of people I know love sculpture. So I don't know if by whom. And I'd say this. In the world we live in today, 21st century, all art is underappreciated. All good art is underappreciated. The crap that goes for sculpture, the crap that goes for painting, the crap that goes for music. I mean, it's just all horrible. And as a consequence, it dumbs down the population. And I believe it actually dumbs down our cognition. It actually makes us less able to think well. I think music that goes boom, 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 that doesn't do anything. That thud that is rap or that is most popular music, just a beat. I think that dumbs down our mind, because our mind, partially what music does is it gives us kind of logical sophistication, logical complexity, and handling logic and complexity. And I think when you don't have that, it actually has an impact on your cognitive abilities. Now that's speculation. I cannot prove any of that, but that's everything around us. So I think every art form today, literature, everything, plays, dance, everything is underappreciated. Think about the dancing that happens, which is basically, just moving around your hips and being as sexually provocative as possible. And that goes for dancing today as compared to ballet, or as compared to even some modern dance that's classically oriented, which is just gorgeous and just, really conveys real emotion and real human values. So again, I think we're poor today in every single one of those art forms, and it's tragic. Now, is sculpture in particular? Absolutely. I mean, I think even those who know good art don't fully appreciate it, and partially it's because they don't see it. Where do you find good sculpture? You have to go to museums, and within a museum, you have to go to the places where the good sculpture actually is. You have to look for it at the Louvre. You have to look for it at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And some museums that I think are magnificent, nobody's ever heard of, like the Glyptotek in Copenhagen, which I think has one of the best sculpture collections in the world and is magnificent. And you can go there I like to go there once during the day, once at night, because at night all the sculptures are lit up in this magnificent light, and it's just beautiful. And the Musée d'Orsay, and again the Sculpture Garden in the Louvre. And one of the great places to find sculpture, if you love sculpture, one of the great places to find sculpture is in old cemeteries that date back to the 19th century in rich cities. Many of the cities in Italy have fantastic cemeteries where there's beautiful art, because in those days when somebody died, the rich people would pay a sculptor to sculpt a monument on the grave. The best of those, maybe one of the best collections of art anywhere in the world, of sculpture anywhere in the world, is in the graveyard in Milan, Italy. It is just spectacular. You can spend a week there and not see everything, and it's beautiful, and it's touching, and it's emotional, and it's technically the sculptures are fantastic and phenomenal. So one of the reasons I think it's underappreciated is that people just don't see it. They don't know where to look for it. I love sculpture. Sculpture is one of my favorite art forms, and I seek it out. And in my house, both in my house in California and in my apartment in Puerto Rico, there's sculpture everywhere. I mean, there's sculpture everywhere. So, and it's little sculptures, the bigger sculptures. Whenever I have a little bit of money, we'll end up going out and buying a sculpture. Any idea when the full videos from Ocon will be published? No, I mean, they usually take their time, and they'll be published over time. I'm trying to find out when ARI will let me release the videos of my talks at Ocon. So those might be released sooner, because I'll probably put them up on my channel. But the rest of them, they usually span them over the year, and they release them slowly over the year, because they want to reward the people who actually come to the conference, and reward the people who actually pay for the super chat, and not for the super chat, for the live stream feature. Action Jackson asks, he asked me, why do I consider Aliens and the Abyss movies epistemological? Now, this is I'm answering a question for people who've actually seen the movies, so I hope you've seen them. So Aliens is a movie about this really, really, particularly the second one, right? The second Aliens. But the Aliens franchise is about this really, really, really spooky, horrifying alien. And the alien is particularly horrifying because it is parasitic, and it's parasitic on the human body. So it actually it lays an egg inside of you, and the alien grows inside your belly, and then it comes out of your belly. So it's fairly disgusting. But think about, I can't think of anything more scary and more offensive and more disgusting than that. So you've got this real evil, right? Real evil. Not evil in the sense that it's doing something that it is evil. I don't know what it is, right? But in a sense that its effect on your life is evil, right? That which harms human life is evil. It is evil. It destroys human life, and it grows, and it's almost impossible to kill. And it's just this amazing monster that actually it wasn't Cameron who invented, but it was the guy who was the director of the first Alien, another famous director. I apologize for having a abysmal memory. But anyways, you've got this alien. And then in the movie Aliens, you have a team of Marines, Sigourney Weaver, who is the only survivor of the previous encounter with these aliens, which was the first movie, Alien, and a corporate guy. And by the way, the movie is very anti-corporation, so it's anti-business in that sense. And usually I'm not. I don't like movies that are anti-business. But again, because the theme here is epistemological, I don't mind the anti-business side of it. So you've got this whole crew there. And every one of them deals with the situation in a different way. Every one of them has to figure out how they're going to survive. So some of them panic. They die very quickly. Some of them are consumed by fear. They die very quickly. The corporate guy wants to find a way to manipulate the situation, but he evades essential aspects of reality. He evades the true nature of this alien and the threat that it poses. He ultimately dies. The only people who survive, there are two people basically, other than, this kind of a robot, but the two people who basically survive. One is Sigourney Weaver. And the beauty of the movie is that Sigourney Weaver is super rational. But not just implicit. Her rationality is not just implicit. Her rationality is explicit. She constantly during the movie says, let's stop and think. Let's figure this out. What should be our next step? How, given the nature of the alien, how do we deal with it? How do we take a next step in order to defeat it? Or in order to, you can't really defeat it, but how are we going to survive? How am I going to save the lives of the people I care about in this group and survive? It's a constant issue of mind. Never evade. Never look the other way. Always deal with the facts as they're in front of you. And have the courage and the rationality to focus your mind on the problem and try to figure it out. And Sigourney Weaver in that movie is one of the great, great heroes in action movies. Because she's so explicitly rational. Now, the other character who survives with Sigourney is a Marine. And the reason he survives is he figures out very early that the only way he's going to survive is that he attaches himself to the smartest and most rational and most experienced person, which is Sigourney Weaver. He watches everybody else act irrationally, and he identifies the fact that they're all completely irrational. And he says, if I'm going to face this enemy, if I'm going to face this evil, if I'm going to survive this evil, Sigourney Weaver clearly has the most information, clearly has the most knowledge, and clearly is rational. I'm going to attach myself to her, and I'm going to do what's necessary. A, for her to survive, and B, I'm going to follow her orders because she knows what she's doing, and nobody else knows what she's doing. So he identifies, again, conceptually, again, what's what? Puts the fear aside, because they're all afraid. Puts the fear aside, uses his mind, focuses, and deals with reality as it is. So that's Aliens. And it's a constant movie where you're constantly in fear. It's like a horror movie, but I think a very, very sophisticated horror movie. And it's the action is fantastic, the suspense is fantastic, and I think at the end of the day, her character is amazing. Amazing, right? The Abyss is different. So the Abyss, it's about a group in a submarine way down at the bottom of the ocean, right? Very deep. So complete isolation. Again, you get all the emotions that come from that tendency towards emotionalism that come out of complete isolation. And I don't remember I don't remember everything about the Abyss, but the key about the Abyss is that during this time down in the submarine at the bottom of the ocean, they encounter an alien. With very little information about the alien, they encounter an alien. And then every one of them responds to the alien differently. So the military guy who's suffering from the disease that you get when you go down into the depths too fast, right? He becomes paranoid. So his lead motivation is fear, and he does everything he can, and he acts in every way out of fear. So it's, how do we know stuff? What motivates us to action? One guy, it's a conspiracy theory. You know, another guy, it's fear, but he's more rational than the first guy, but he's still, most of his motivation is through fear. And then you've got the two lead characters. And the woman, in this case, played by, I forget her name, but she's a wonderful actress. She's curious. She wants to study it. She wants to figure it out. She's not taking anything for granted. She's not fearful, but she's not, you know, she just wants to, she's in awe. You know, we're meeting an alien for the first time in human history. This is cool. And I want to study this, and I want to figure it out. And I'm afraid, but I'm not so afraid that it's going to dominate. It's going to rule over my cognition. And I'm not going to let my emotions rule what I do. And she's constantly trying to communicate with the alien, try to figure out what it wants and who it is and how it relates to. And then there's her ex-husband, who's in the submarine as well. And he is more cautious than her, but again, he respects her. And he also has the general attitude of, wow, this is cool. What does it mean? How do we deal with it? And he's you know, he is also the man of action. He is the one who is going to actually, at the end of the day, engage with the alien and save everybody and actually, you know, anyway, I don't want to give it away. Although the ending is horrible. The ending is stupid, and it's even stupider in the uncut version. You start seeing James Cameron's weird philosophical views in the uncut version, and it's awful. So, you know, I both of those movies, with the exception of the ending of The Abyss, I think are excellent movies about how different people in extreme circumstances deal with those circumstances epistemologically. That is, how do they think about them? How do they use their minds, right? It's also moral. Do you focus on reality? Do you engage with the virtue of rationality? Or do you let your emotion swamp your reason? In both of the movies, it's about collecting facts, figuring out what's right and what's wrong, what works and what doesn't work, what'll save you and what won't save you. There's a wonderful scene in The Abyss where, in order to, I don't know, escape a situation, they have to be basically put themselves in a state that's, or the lead character has to put himself in a state that basically is as close to death as you can be. He actually has to freeze his body as close as it can be to death, and he can do that. That's the only way he can save his ex-wife, whom he still loves, and save himself, hopefully, because then he gets revived afterwards. And it's very powerful. And again, he's thinking, how do we get out of this situation? What do we do? How do we do it? And it's constantly, it celebrates the human mind. It celebrates the ability of human beings to think under stress, under the worst kind of stress you can imagine, out of the life and death circumstances. And both movies, Aliens and The Abyss, take you to that extreme, put you in that extreme situation. And then the heroes are the ones who emerge as the rational, as the ones who can use their mind under extreme situations and solve problems in the extreme situations. In that sense, it celebrates rationality. What is your opinion of objectivist Mr. Cooper and his firebrand approach of spreading Ayn Rand's philosophy through YouTube videos? Never heard of Mr. Cooper, so I'll look him up. Never heard of Mr. Cooper. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Mr. Cooper. Objectivist Mr. Cooper. Yeah. No, never heard of him, so we'll test it out. All right, let's see. I think there was another super chat. Yeah, the actress in the Abyss is Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and she's wonderful. She's really one of the real fine actors. Do you have any thoughts on Eleanor Ostrom and her design principles on David? Eleanor Ostrom. Eleanor Ostrom was an economist, right? She won a Nobel Prize in economics, and I don't know her design principles. I know she won the Nobel Prize for the work that she did, on a sense, private property, and the fact that even primitive pride. So on the so-called problem of the commons, and one of the things she does in her work is describe the describe how even in primitive societies they create what you'd call pseudo property rights in order to deal with the so-called problems of the commons, and how resources should be allocated in a society. Let's say if you have a big plot of land and all the cows are going to graze there, nobody has an incentive for the cows not to overgraze, and therefore all the cows die. But if you divide the plot of land into sects, and your cow is here and my cow is there, now you have an incentive for your cow over this piece of land not to overgraze. So it's good work, I think, but I don't know what the design principle is, and I do not know David Sloan Wilson. I'll look him up and see what I can find. Okay, people are asking, not in super chat, luckily, people are asking about other objectivists. What do you think of this? What do you think of that person? Don't ask me that. I don't want to get into a position. You listen, you evaluate, you think about what you want to do, and who you think is good and who you think is not good. I mean, people ask me about Charles too and about these other people. Just you figure it out. I'm not gonna have a scale. I tell you the people I really like I think Ankur Gate and Greg Solomieri, Tara Smith, Robin Mayhew, Harry Binswang, and the best of all is Lena Peikoff. I think those are people worth listening to. I tell you the people I really admire, and then you guys listen to whoever. I'm not going to get into the business of evaluating objectivist intellectuals. Nothing good. Publicly, nothing good can come of that, and I'm just not interested in it. It's boring. Brandon asked, any thoughts on Trump pulling back from bombing Iran for the drone? Well, I have lots of thoughts. Lots of thoughts. I mean, I could do a whole show on it. But, Trump is when it comes to foreign policy, Trump is pathetic. He doesn't know what he wants. He has no idea how to engage in foreign policy, and you saw that today with him, with the murderous dictator of North Korea, shaking his hand again, calling him his friend, and crossing over to the North Korean state, which only emboldens the murderous guy and only makes North Korea, the North Koreans themselves, demoralized, because if America won't fight for them, if America won't stand up to the thug that is in charge of them, thug is too nice of a word for him, then who will? So Donald Trump has no clue about foreign policy. He is a walking disaster when it comes to foreign policy, and the reason is that he has no principles. He doesn't believe in principles. He doesn't live by principles. He doesn't think in principles. He has no concept of principle. Now, the thing with Iran is, what's your policy about Iran? Sanctions, okay, but what if the sanctions don't work in a sense of toppling the Iranian regime? Then what do? Do you have a policy? Do you have a strategy? There are a lot of people, there's some people surrounding Trump, like Bolton, who would like to go to war with Iran. So they're pushing to try to try to provoke Iran into doing something that would give them an excuse to bomb the hell out of Iran. But does Trump support them? Does he know what they're doing? Does he care? Does he support the policy of going to war with Iran? It seems like not. It seems like he doesn't want to go to war with Iran. He ran, indeed, to the presidency on a platform that not interfering in the Middle East and not going to war with Iran. What is the strategy? There's no strategy. So, yeah, he pulled back from bombing Iran for the drone. That is terrible. But it's also terrible if he'd bombed them. Because he'd bombed them in the name of what? What would have been the cause? What would have been the purpose? What's he trying to do? And this is the problem. Once in a while, Donald Trump does something right. But it's right out of context. It's right in a meaningless sense. Like cutting taxes. That's good. That's right. Cutting taxes is always good. Well, really, is it? If you increase spending by even more than you cut taxes, you increase spending by any amount while you're cutting taxes? I mean, it's insane. So out of context, cutting taxes is good. In context, cutting taxes is not that meaningful. So, my view is, I've said this for years and years and years, but it's not practical today, that Iran is a real threat to the security of the United States. The regime in Iran must be changed, and the United States should do everything it can to change the regime, preferably by encouraging a revolution inside Iran with the pro-West elements of it. But on top of that, but if not, then by going to war with Iran and crushing it and doing away with the regime. But it's not going to happen. And Trump is not going to make it happen because Trump doesn't know what he believes. He doesn't have an opinion. Right? He doesn't have an opinion. All right. Marius asks, if you have one, what is your opinion of Norway and the direction it is heading? Is this something Norway has done better than the U.S.? No, I mean, I don't think Norway's done anything better than the United States. I think Norway's done things better than countries like Venezuela and other countries because it's managed to manage its natural resources fairly well, and it's managed to be responsible with the wealth that comes from those natural resources without just blowing them. But the natural resources should have never been owned by the government. Natural resources should be always been private. And I think Norway would actually be richer today if the natural resources be private. Anyway, even if it wasn't richer, it is the right, just thing to do. I think Norway's welfare state and its dependence on oil ultimately are undercutting productivity in Norway. I think the success of the Norwegian people, the happiness of the Norwegian people. And I think Norway is ultimately, particularly if it runs out of oil, I think Norway is going to, unless it changes, unless it philosophically changes, is going to be in sharp decline. I think Norway is benefiting from oil. It's cruising on that oil. But at the end of the day, welfare and the kind of welfare state Norway and most of Scandinavia is incredibly corroding. It's incredibly corrosive of the human spirit and human motivations. And I think Norway long-term is unhealthy and will become more so an unhealthy country. Now, what's interesting about Norway is there are a lot of objectivists. There are a lot of interest in Ayn Rand. There are a lot of people in Norway who are fans of the show. I get a lot of listeners here. So there's a hunger in Norway for more freedom, just like there is, I think, in most countries among certain people within the population. But it can't, what Norway's doing can't sustain and has done things better than the US. I mean, in a sense better, right? So Norway does welfare better than the US. Norway does welfare better than the US. It's more efficient. You distribute wealth more efficiently. Partially it's because you're a small country, relatively homogeneous country. And it's easy to redistribute wealth in Norway. It's hard in the United States. The United States has 1 million programs. They're inefficient. There's massive amounts of waste. So the 5 million people in Norway, I mean, it's a really small, tiny country. So there's certain things you do more efficiently. But in terms of overall public policy, welfare is bad. And, I did a talk at Bergen, at the University of Bergen. And it's online. It's I think it's something like the immorality or the what is wrong with the Norwegian or the Scandinavian welfare state. You can find it on my channel, where I talk about Norway and I talk about the dangers and the evil of the Norwegian welfare state and why it has to ultimately self-destruct. Ultimately, could be 50 years, but ultimately it has to self-destruct. And the United States could self-destruct sooner, because the United States not only has a welfare state, but also regulates and controls. Regulates much more than countries like Norway controls, and controls business more than Norway controls business. So, I think the West is in trouble. I think all the West is in trouble, and I think things are probably going to get worse before they get better. Although in the meantime, they may get better. So this is the kind of thing is I'm not very good at making predictions about the future. But I will say this: if nothing changes philosophically, nothing changes intellectually in the West is doomed. The West is committing suicide slowly. It's not being killed by anybody external. It's committing suicide. How would you explain morality to a 5-year-old? Well, I mean, to some extent you can, and to some extent you can't, right? Morality is that which promotes your life versus that which hurts your life. So morality, the immoral is that which hurts your life, with that which is a threat to your life and a danger to your life. And morality is that which benefits your life. And you can explain those kind of concepts to a child. You could use to some extent the pain pleasure mechanism. But more generally, you can start by very simple things in terms of what is good and what is bad. And to some extent, you have to just tell them that certain behaviors are unacceptable and certain behaviors are bad for them. They might not understand why they're bad for them, but they will when they grow up. And as they grow up, you have to fill in the gaps. But it's not easy. It's not easy. What you cannot do is make them morality in the commandments. This you shall do, and this you shan't do, and keep it at that. You can say you can't do this, but you have to, at some point, as they grow up, explain why. Explain why. All right, I think we're over an hour. I think that they'll do it. It's already 11 o'clock p.m. In London. We'll see when I do a next show. Hopefully in the next few days, depending on my internet connection as I travel in Switzerland and then in Florence. I'm hoping we have a good internet connection in Florence because I'll be there quite a few days and I'd like to do a show from there. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Remember, if you like this show, please support me on subscribestar.com or on the yaronbrookshow.com/support webpage. You can also subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet, please. And then, of course, please share these videos. And if you want to ask me a question next time, then use the SuperChat feature on YouTube. Don't just ask questions in the chat because I'm not going to answer them. You have to use the SuperChat feature. All right. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to talking to you soon again. Hope you enjoyed the show today.